Hey, boy. Nice doggy. We're in our garage and test facility. Let's see what we're testing today. Good grief, they sent us another Honda Civic. Let's see, a month ago we had the Honda Civic Sedan Touring. Then right after that we had the Honda Civic Hatchback. But this is something special here. Ooh, the SI Turbo. Alright, top of the line. And another SI emblem on the trunk to let people know you spent more money over the basic Honda Civic. And another item on the trunk lid, a black spoiler. I suppose you get the car to do 130, 40 miles per hour, it might be functional. Otherwise, I think it's just here for looks. We get a beef suspension, 18-inch alloy wheels with performance Goodyear tires. If you order a standard Honda Civic, you can get a 2-liter 158 horsepower motor or the 1.5 180 horsepower turbo engine. But on the SI, we get a 200 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, 1.5 liter, which puts out 192 foot-pounds of torque at 1,800 RPM. Even though you put a maximum torque out below 2,000 RPM, the fact is, on the street, this engine really doesn't move very quick below the 2,500 RPM mark. It isn't until you get like 3,000 RPM up to the 6,600 RPM this thing really starts to move. And because of that, an automatic transmission just doesn't work very well. On this motor, you need to keep the RPMs up, but for that we have a 6-speed manual transmission. Very smooth, very slick, pleasant to use. The clutch is very light. A bit more travel than I would prefer, but more than adequate to get used to. There's also a drive mode program, normal, sport, or individual settings. And the button below that is to turn off the start-stop system that shuts off the engine at stoplights to supposedly save fuel, which doesn't really work. It's there mainly to convince you you're saving the environment by cutting your fuel economy. I suppose you live in Los Angeles or Atlanta where the highway traffic moves at 3 miles per hour. You might get some fuel savings, otherwise it's better just to turn this off. Since we're sitting in the vehicle, let's look at the glove box. A decent room, although I don't know why the door needs to be so thick. Very simple climate controls. And the air vents. Long air vents. Easy to use. A medium-sized info screen. Also very simple to use. And on the radio, we do get a volume knob finally on Hondas. Thank you. About time. A well-designed gauge cluster with a bit of glare on a sunny day, nothing serious. There is one major flaw in this cabin that a lot of people won't talk about, even though they know about it. These seats are very, very comfortable on the SI below the neck, but above the neck there's no headrest that's adjustable. It either fits you or it doesn't, and it certainly doesn't fit me. A lot of people are going to have to buy some aftermarket pillows for their head here. There's just too much space between my head and the seat for me on this. A very bad idea. Looks nice, doesn't function well. Also on a vehicle with a manual transmission, or like a manual parking brake instead of electronic. Electronic parking brakes are garbage, but sign of the times. The car is already starting to roll away even though it's in gear. I've already rolled it back about a foot. If you're parking on an incline, make sure you engage the electronic parking brake or you might lose your car. Sliding downhill. If you watch my videos, you know there's two things we do in our videos that other people don't. We take the headlights out in the dark and see how they perform. That'll be part 3 of the video. After part 2 of driving, this is part 1 review. And the other thing we do is check and see if there's a spare tire. The other Civics we had a spare tire, but not on the SI. Just a cheesy tire repair kit. They say they do this to save weight because it's a performance car, but I suspect they saved some money in the process. If you do a lot of driving out of town, you need a spare tire. The base price of a standard Civic usually runs around 22 grand. This one's 28,910. There are no options on the SI. It comes pretty much loaded with everything except the paint. They charge extra for that. Blazing orange, $385. Looks good, so I guess it's worth it. And by the way, here's the fuel economy rating, 27 to 37, average of 31. And here the computer shows the real numbers. Today we did a lot of 0 to 60 runs. It's only got 24.5 mpg. In mixed commuting, a bit of freeway and city, driving normally 29.2. And there's a highway trip, 35.8. Pretty good numbers. Okay, part 2 of the video, we're going to do some driving, and the power steering's pretty good. Decent feeling feedback and response. No complaints from me. I don't think there'll be any complaints from you. Let's take the turning circle. See what this performance suspension does. Bit of body lean. This is front wheel drive only, by the way. Really hanging in there. This is going to be fun on tight mountain roads. As we do with all our videos, we're going to take some mild speed humps at 15 miles per hour, see how the suspension performs on impact. Bump number 1, reasonably soft. Number 2, oh, hit a pothole there. Number 3, and the Gigante one. A bit of thumping, nothing serious. Overall, pretty decent for a performance car, mini performance car. And like I said, you really have to work this gearbox to get some decent acceleration out of this motor. That's what the 6-speed is for. If you're going to be doing acceleration runs in the Honda Civic Si, a couple things you might want to know. Number 1, the third gear is a bit on the tall side, so when you're shifting from second to third, you do lose a bit of momentum. Nothing serious, but just be aware of it. Number 2, the 0 to 60 times listed in car magazines of 6.8 to 7 seconds. Doesn't sound like much, but trust me, on the street, if you keep this baby revved up to 3,000 RPM and above, and use the shifter the way you're intended, this car is pretty quick. A lot quicker if you keep it in the sport mode. By the way, one complaint I have about this shift knob, I don't know if this is metal or not, but if you leave it out in the sun, it sure burns your hand like metal. You'll have the shift points embedded in your hand. Good idea to keep it covered up if you're going to keep the vehicle sitting out in the sun. Just saying. Minor issue, easily resolved. I'm going to cover it up with my official Toyota hat. Although I don't think that'll make Honda very happy in this video. But Honda, you didn't give me a hat. So I've got to use the one from Toyota. So let's reset the mileage computer and take a highway trip. The proper way to do a fuel economy test is to set the cruise control at 75 miles per hour, but there's so many road hogs out today on this Sunday afternoon. I'm doing a lot of passing, so I think my fuel economy is going to go straight down the toilet. But, well, we'll see. Oh yes, another thing we have going against us here, some very serious 20 mile per hour crosswinds this vehicle is fighting. At least we have some good stability from the suspension. Another slow poke, getting in the left passing lane, blocking traffic, just what we need. Stay tuned, this trip will be over real quick. Well, the claimed fuel economy is 37 mpg, which is what I was pretty much getting until I hit the crosswinds and did all that passing, but 34.9 is pretty good to my eyes. The Honda Civic was made to be driven briskly, and a mountain road like this with tight curves is just the medicine it needs. Get that engine and wind it out where it's really happy. This thing is cornering the pavement like a slot car. It's on roads like this where the 6-speed manual really comes into being. Great fun to use on a twisty road like this. And as you might have noticed, we're bouncing around quite a bit. This is a bumpy pavement. But the suspension's doing a fantastic job of sucking up the ruts. Nice brakes too. This is a road I take my German sports sedans on from BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. Cars that like to be driven hard, and naturally this Civic Si can't compete as far as acceleration goes. It doesn't have the horsepower, but as far as cornering ability, it's pretty much an even match, I think. Brakes, thus far, close. Very impressive car for the money here, if you like driving like this. If you're buying an SI, you should. By the way, a car and driver did a test on this car and said the engine sounds really rough and coarse when you rev up the RPMs to redline, and I don't know what they're talking about. This is one of the smoothest engines I've ever driven. Very easy to hit the red line by accident because it's so quiet. So, that's my take. Howdy, partner. Welcome to Cowtown. In the meantime, that was a nice night drive, by the way. What's my take on this Honda Civic Si after a week of driving? Like I said, this is meant to be driven hard, if that's what you're going to do. Nice vehicle to do it. On the other hand, if you're just looking for daily transportation, you get the Honda Civic Touring with the CVT automatic transmission, and probably better suited for you. And Honda gives you the choice, a nice transportation sedan or a nice performance sedan. Take your pick. In any case, for under 30 grand, it's certainly a good buy. Alright, it's dark enough. Oh, the train's going to drown me out with their horn now, okay. And here we have the low beam on. Hey, come back on. Now we have the high beams with all the bulbs lit up. I never could figure out how many bulbs are in there. I think there's 3. These 3 casings, look like there's 3 bulbs in each case though. I'm not sure. I looked at it in the daytime, I couldn't tell. But either works or doesn't work, right? And here's the rear view for the taillights. The emergency flashers with the taillights on. And flashers with the headlights on. Can't see much there. Okay, that is far, far better. Like 500% better. A lot easier to see in the rear too. Before we actually test the headlights, we're sitting in the car, so let's take a look at what the camera looks like when you put the vehicle in reverse. Pretty decent picture. Slightly fuzzy, but might look fuzzier now you're looking at my cheap handheld camera, but more than adequate. Gauge cluster lights up pretty good. Same with the climate controls. Small buttons like the drive mode, parking brake. There are 2 things I despise on a vehicle. Number 1 are the auto dimming mirrors we get on vehicles. I can't stand that nonsense. I can put up with it if you have a disconnect switch. Most of them don't. But this one is a manual system. Flick that. It dims. Put that off. It's off. I like this system. Very simple, doesn't break down, does what you want. And another thing I cannot stand is when you cannot disconnect the interior lights When I open the door, I don't need the lights to come on. It just blinds me. Some cars you can't disconnect the interior lights, but you have a switch right here. Turns everything off the way it should be. The Toyota Corolla I had last week didn't have a switch like this. Blind me every time I open the door. This is what you need. So thumbs up for the dimming mirror, that's manual, and thumbs up for the interior light control. Alright, for the headlight test, we have a building 33 yards away, or 100 feet. Very bright. Not as high as I would like, but more than adequate. Let's go to high beam. Definitely strong in the middle, decent spread. For long distances, the high beams do a pretty good job of lighting up the road signs down the street. As we can see when this vehicle gets out of the way. Overall, these are pretty good lights. Pretty much the same as under Honda Civics I've driven. Since this is considered a high-performance car with a brisky turbo 200 horsepower engine and 6-speed manual, you do need a good set of lights, especially if you're going hard on the street. So we take this out in the country and get a real good idea of how these headlights work at long distance. Reaches out pretty good. And here we have the high beams on, lighting up all the road signs about a quarter mile away. Low beam, high beam. There are an awful lot of animals out here at night and have a tendency to hang out in corners, so it's better to use the brights. And these do a pretty good job. There's one thing I don't like about this car, it has to do with Hondas in general. As long as the motor is running, you cannot turn off the headlights. Not completely anyway. Right now I have the daytime running lights running, and that's as low as it's going to get. Doesn't matter if it's daytime, nighttime. This started with the laws in Canada that said the headlights have to be on at all times. And Honda didn't want to change it for the US market, so this is where we're stuck. There are times when the engine's running, I don't want headlights on. I won't go down the list. You might have your own. I don't like this. But we're stuck with it, unfortunately. Other than that, I have no complaints about the headlight performance, though.